Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Friday, October 7th. So today we have the moon in Pisces all day. It is the only day this week. Again, you probably heard me talk about it through the daily energy forecasts. This is the only day of the week where we actually have a full day of the moon in a particular energy, in a particular sign, without going void, of course, at the end of the day. This is the only day. And having the moon in Pisces is a little bit fitting because we have had a wonky ass week when it comes to the energy, mostly because, of course, Mercury came out of its retrograde. But also, we are in the very last day here today of Pluto being in its retrograde. We're in for a very powerful, intense, transformative weekend. Why? We have Pluto going direct, we have the full moon in Aries, we have Mercury re-entering into Libran energy, all within a 3-day span. And actually, when you look at the hours that each of these events are taking place in respect to each other, we are condensing huge amounts of energy in a very short amount of time. Again, I'm going to recommend that you listen to this week's Ascension forecast because this is absolutely going to be an energetically poppin' weekend. Of course, we've had notifications off of the Schumann Resonance that the solar flares are coming in hot and heavy. We are likely going to feel the physical repercussions of the energy coming in this weekend. So the moon being in Pisces is about endings and closures. It's where we emotionally transform ourselves, bringing things full circle, recognizing where healing has taken place, where it does need to take place. What do we do in Piscean energy? We wrap things up. Why? Because we're about to enter into Aries energy when new things begin. And we are entering into that Aries energy with a full moon in Aries, conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer, with some pretty powerful other aspects that are just going to make us reach this, I'm going to say, very raw, very vulnerable boiling point where we got to get some of this energy out of our physical bodies before we can enter into the next chapter. And of course, the next chapter is happening now with all of these heavy hitting planets coming out of their retrograde, going direct. Again, listen to the October energy forecast. If you haven't already, download your zodiac forecast so that you know where this is taking place in your life and be prepared. So the moon in Pisces wants us to kind of be chill, wants us to be calm, wants us to kind of rest and wind down. Now, for the most part, we're going to find that very challenging because the energy is absolutely whack. We have a lot of different aspects trying to fire us up in kind of preparation for this full moon in Aries. We're already starting to feel the tug of war, the inner conflict, the push and pull. And it's going to be very hard to kind of maintain this very chill, calm, zen state that the moon in Pisces would like us to stay in. So that is like the goal here today, is just to stay calm and to be reflective and to kind of, emotionally pay attention to what's coming up so that we can provide it with a little bit of love, a little bit of empathy, a little bit of compassion so that we can integrate it and acknowledge it as we prepare to move into this next cycle. But again, some aspects are happening here today. It's going to make that very, very challenging. So 9 different aspects here today. 8 of them involve the moon in Pisces. And what I will say is that, especially towards the end of the day, we will be moving into the full moon window, which means that things are going to get big, they're going to get illuminated, they're going to get amplified. We are likely going to feel overwhelmed. That's typically a symptom of Piscean energy anyways. But this is going to be a buildup, an intensity point to the full moon in Aries that we're definitely going to start tapping into at the end of the day here today. So the moon right out of the gate is going to be bumping into Venus in such a way that would provide us with a little bit of an aha moment from situations that are taking place outside of us. Likely in direct connection with our personal relationships, likely illuminating for us where it is that we have to really get real with the changes that are needed within ourselves and with the power exchange, the dynamic, so to speak, in our personal relationships in order for us to be on the same page, for us to feel connected again, for us to feel emotionally safe and stable and supported. And of course, with the moon being in Pisces, we're feeling all the feels. with Venus being in her place of power in Libran energy. Although we want to be in love with love and we want to be happy-go-lucky, we want to just, focus on the small things and just be happy and content with life. That isn't really the way that we learn about that. We're in Libra season. Venus is in Libra, which means that our ultimate goal is balance and peace and stability and harmony and happiness. But again, we learn about those things. We learn about what it is that we have to do to achieve those things through instability, through chaos, through confusion, through discontentment, through unhappiness. But as we illuminate and as we learn, we're able to focus in on what the problem is and, of course, provide solutions to that. This particular energy will likely have us all up in our feels. We are hypersensitive in this Piscean energy. We can connect to the subtle energies of the universe, the cosmos, of people around us. It's very hard to kind of discern what energy belongs to us and what belongs to other people. But at the same time, we almost need to be overwhelmed at this point in order for us to be forced to be put in a position to discern what is ours to own and what is other people's to own, what we actually have power and control over to change within ourselves versus what we expect other people to be doing to make the changes within themselves to meet us halfway. Regardless, we are likely seeing a situation pop off in a very close personal relationship that is going to illuminate for us where the problem is and where it is that a solution needs to be provided in order for us to fix this particular relationship. The moon is going to semi-square, a little bit of a tension, a little bit of a conflict with Pluto, the great transformer, who is currently just got ants in his pants, ready to go direct here tomorrow. And because of this, the very few aspects, this is actually the second last aspect that Pluto will be making in a retrograde position. Before going direct, this is a little bit of a jitteriness that we're feeling. This is an impulse to make the changes, to make the transformations, to get to work, to push forward, to stand in our power, to take control back. There is an intensity here because, like I said, Pluto's got ants in his pants. He can't wait to go direct. He can't wait to start exerting himself out in the outside world, in our external realm, in order to maneuver and manipulate some of the elements and aspects that we identified need to be changed in order for us to actually move forward, actually take control of our lives, actually stand in our power. So this particular energy is going to feel overwhelming. And again, we're really wanting to rest and unwind and to stay calm and stay zen, but we have all of these energy triggers pushing us to boss up, pushing us to get our asses in gear, pushing us to make a change. And technically speaking, we're not actually encouraged to, make any moves or to take the green light from the universe until definitely after this week, but I would recommend waiting until the 17th. And that's just my personal opinion. Not to say that you don't take action, that you don't take the opportunity if it presented itself, because of course everybody's path is different, but just know that the impulse that we have right now is really pushing us to make moves that if we do make them, they're probably not the best way to make the moves, and it may actually lead us into a misstep, which means that we're going to have to come back and correct the way that we exerted ourselves and tried to make these changes. So just keep that in mind. But right now, we're just having a hard time. This is a disconnect because, again, the moon in Pisces just wants us to chill, wants us to be calm, wants us to be zen, just wants to sit back and see, what flows through us, what flows to us. And then you got Pluto over here just rearing to go, just, poking a stick at us, trying to say, this is no time to rest. We're about to make a major change in our lives. You should be a little bit more activated, a little bit more excited. And of course, we're not. We're overwhelmed with all that is going on. So this is where the disconnect comes from. Now, things are going to get even more challenging here because the sun in Libra energy is going to sit across from, directly oppose, get in a confrontation with Chiron, the wounded healer, who is retrograde in Aries energy. Libra and Aries energy sit across from each other in the zodiac wheel. They are polar opposites, so to speak. And what this is going to do, first of all, the sun shining a bright light on where it is that we need to achieve balance, stability, peace, harmony, love, contentment, pleasure, happiness in our lives. How do we do that? We face the parts of our lives that currently are not in that state. How do we do that? Well, Chiron's going to basically rip the Band-Aids off the wounds that we've been trying to heal, pick the scabs, if there's any scabs there, and reopen all of our, I'm going to say, wounds and scars and pain and trauma. And how do we do that? Well, we're going to sit with it, and it's not going to feel good. And of course, we're feeling all kinds of feels because we're in Piscean energy. It's overwhelming. The goal here is not to totally check out, to not totally disassociate, to not totally just run for the hills and numb in whichever way feels soothing and therapeutic to us. We have to confront this, which is going to be the hardest part. So what are we confronting? Well, we're confronting where it is that we feel absolutely terrified of moving forward and making changes in our lives. We need to confront where our insecurities are holding us back from actually standing in our power. We're confronting where it is that we're so freaking vulnerable in life that it actually appears to us as a weakness instead of a strength. Because again, our vulnerability is our greatest strength, but we have a weird perception around that. We actually look at it as a weakness, as something to hide and be ashamed of. That is not the case. We have to, reframe what vulnerability actually is and where it is actually pushing us into our power, into our strength. A lot of this has to do with relationships because, of course, we are in Libra season. Libra season does focus on relationships. It focuses on, first of all, the relationship that we have with ourselves, and we learn about the relationship that we have with ourselves through the relationship that we have with the world around us, with the people around us. And then we expand that to the relationships that we have with other people, realizing at this particular point that the people in our lives are a mirror for us to look at, for us to see where our triggers, our activations, our pain, our suffering, our trauma is being mirrored back to us. Again, you hear me talk about all this all the time. People can't make you angry. They can do things that trigger the anger within you. It's up to you to heal the void on what the trigger and activation is, in order to not have that reaction to whatever it is that somebody else is doing. Nobody makes you angry or makes you sad. They're doing themselves, they're doing them, and whatever it is that they're doing acts as a trigger and an activation to show you where it is that you still have parts of yourself that are still raw and open, that need attention, that need healing. And so, yes, our doubts, our fears, our insecurities are likely going to be triggered and activated and mirrored back to us through the relationships that we have in our lives. And here's the thing. We're in Libra season. We're hella indecisive. We're also tapping into the shadow elements of what it is to be in Libran energy, which is indecisiveness, securities, doubts, fears, especially in relationships, because, of course, in Libran energy, we look outside of ourselves for worth, for value, for validation. We have a tendency to people please in this Libran energy. And here's the thing. We're finding out right now what it is that we actually want, need, and desire, what would actually lead us into our happiness. But the problem is that means that we're going to have to enforce some boundaries and pull back from doing some of the things that we've been doing to try to make other people happy. And therefore, we're realizing right now, oh my goodness, what if I pull back on doing some of these things that I'm so used to doing to try and make other people happy and have an easier time? And then they get offended, or they're not going to love me anymore, or they're not going to be my friend anymore, or whatever the case may be. We're starting to really just put too much power into other people's hands at this particular point. So we are having a little bit of a crisis point in our decision making. We don't feel confident. We don't feel like we are sure about anything. We don't feel like we're making the right choice. Our natural programming is to look outside of us for validation that we are making the right choice. But again, then other people's wants, needs, and concerns override what it is that we want, need, and desire for ourselves. And then we continue to give our power away to other people. And then we grow resentment towards them. And realistically, we should grow resentment towards ourselves because we gave the power away. We did not put our own wants, needs, and desires first. And then we have a disconnect in our relationships because we expect for others to do for us what it is that we do for them. And let me just tell you, expectations lead to nothing but disappointments. Other people are not you. They do not see life the way that you see it. They do not reciprocate in the way that you would reciprocate. And to think, to hope and dream and pray that you continue to pour into somebody, expecting that they are eventually going to pour back into you the same way that you've been pouring into them, is doing nothing but setting yourself up for absolute heartbreak. So we have all of these fears and insecurities and doubts coming up. Now, we want to be better. We want to improve. We want to grow. We want to learn. We want to learn from our past experiences. We want to implement new change. We want to implement new boundaries so that we can switch things up. But right now, we're lacking such freaking confidence in ourselves that we don't know what to do, and therefore, we are crumbling inside. And we are letting the shadow element of this moon and Pisces energy get to us. What is the shadow element? Victimhood. What is the shadow element? Fear, numbness, disassociation. Want, need, and desire to not take part in this physical reality. A want, need, and desire to run away, to escape, to avoid all the things that we know in our heart we need to be confronting. So this, again, is not an aspect that's going to feel good, not fun, but it is absolutely necessary that we face these fears. We face these shadow elements because that's the only way that we can heal them. We get a little bit of help when the moon goes ahead and sextiles, which is a beautiful energy, with the true node. Now, this particular energy is going to set us up for, yes, diving into the depths of the darkness just then with the sun and Chiron. But from that, what are we doing? Well, we're acknowledging where our pain, our trauma, our fears, our doubts, our insecurities are. And what do we do with that? We create a framework on how it is that we're going to heal them, how it is that we're going to fix them, how it is that we're going to solve some of these particular problems. And from that, we strategize. And from that, we make a plan. And from that, we have a baby step that we're able to make. That's what the true node is all about, is setting us up on the path that we can take in order to achieve our soul's mission, our soul's purpose. And that's what we're figuring out right now, is what it is that we're feeling aligned and inspired to pursue. The moon bumps into Chiron once again in such a way that, again, happening outside of us, the earlier aspect kind of triggering within ourselves without an outside activation to do so. This particular energy is likely going to be an activation and a trigger that happens from our exterior realm, likely from a person who is very close to us, showing us alive and well in real time why we have insecurities, why we have fears, why we have doubts, why we're indecisive about some of the changes that we know in our heart space we need to make for ourselves to put ourselves first. This is almost like, if this isn't a great example of what it is that you focus on in your mental plane actually manifesting, I don't know what is. So earlier, we kind of sat with ourselves. We're in our inner realm. We're sorting things out. We're visualizing all of these scenarios. It is likely at this particular point with the moon making this aspect to Chiron that there is going to be an outside validation for the way that you were feeling earlier. And of course, once it actually is real and it's not just something that we're making up, then we have to do something about it. Then we really have to confront it. Then we really have to make a move. The moon goes ahead and bumps into the sun in a way that would suggest that here we are, paralyzed in this present moment. We know what it is we want to be done with. We know what it is that needs to end. We know what it is we need to close the door on, what it is we need to heal, what it is we need to make peace with. We also know what it is we have to move forward to do. We also know where it is that we have to make moves in our lives in order to make changes to achieve that peace, that balance, that stability, that harmony, that happiness. And what we're left with is this present moment self being torn between two different versions of ourselves, two different time periods in our lives, the past versus the future. What are you going to do in the here and now to either keep the old version of you alive, preventing you from moving forward and achieving the things that you've been illuminated that you actually want, need, and desire? Or are you going to choose to cut the fuel, the fire, the feed off to that old version of yourself, to create a space for you to fuel, inspire, and motivate the new version of yourself to get your shit together, to align with the new qualities and characteristics that you know you need to align with in order to make the changes that you know you need to make in order to have a chance in hell of manifesting the kind of reality that you're currently inspired to pursue? This is a choice point. It doesn't feel good. It's pressurized. But again, we're at an ending of a cycle, preparing for a brand new beginning. The moon is going to sextile positive, beautiful energy with Uranus, the great awakener who is retrograde in Taurus energy. This is an aha moment. This is an epiphany. This is a choice point. This is a revelation in our mental plane on what it is that we need to do. This is inspiration. This is motivation. This is determination in order for us to get out of our own damn way from blocking our blessings, from blocking the progress, from blocking the growth. This is essentially where it is that we're having such a profound aha moment, an epiphany of our lives on the choice point that we've just been given an opportunity to align with the old self or with the new self. This is an opportunity to open our minds up, to be spontaneous enough to actually choose to be different, to choose a new path, a new method, a new way of thinking, a new way of being. And it feels right. Our intuition is strong. We're feeling it in our heart and our head. And that is the first step of the recipe of manifesting. We get our heart and head in alignment, in agreement, so that we can engage the physical body to make the moves in our physical realm that need to be made in order to honor what it is that we've already arrived at in our inner realm. The moon is going to bump into Saturn in such a way that the outside world is bringing us down a couple of pegs to remind us of our roles and responsibilities, our obligations, our commitments, in order to fulfill certain cycles, karmically speaking, in order to fulfill karmic cycles before we get to move on, okay? This is a little bit somber. This is bringing us down a couple of pegs. This is making us a little bit more realistic because, again, the moon in Pisces has us living in la la land, in a fantasy land. Saturn brings back a layer of reality, a layer of seriousness, of somberness on where it is that we have to boss up and be mature in life if we plan on moving on to the next level of enlightenment. The last aspect that we have here today is between the moon squaring Mars. Now, it doesn't sound good, doesn't feel good. It's a square, it's a conflict. What is it a conflict between? Well, it's a conflict between our emotions, our intuition versus our physical energy, our drive, our passion. Now, why is this? Well, first of all, the moon in Pisces getting into the boxing ring with Mars is bringing an element of, hey man, I don't want to fight. I don't want this confrontation. Just want everybody to get along. I want to love you. I want everything to be happy. I want to be chill. I want to be calm. Let's just rest. Let's not even get into this boxing ring. You got Mars over here, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desires, even our anger, in Gemini energy. So there's a lot going on in that mental plane. And Mars wants to take action. He is going to be the ruler of this full moon in Aries that we are just entering into the full moon window of. He is looking to trigger and activate us for us to get fired up. Why? Because we need to be triggered. We need to feel that inner stirring. We need to feel that impulsivity creep up in us in order to force us to take the action that we are being kind of so resistant in actually taking. Now, here's the thing. Mars just wants to move forward, but we're not in a time of moving forward. We have this desire that we want to put into action some of the ideas that we've been having. We want to communicate. We want to share. We want to connect. We want to learn. We want to push ourselves forward in the path of growth and improvement. We want to take action. We want to be inspired. We want to be motivated. We want to be determined. We want to act on these feelings until they get snuffed out again. And that is a direct conflict with the moon being in Pisces, because the moon in Pisces doesn't want to take action. We're not aggressive in this Pisces energy. We're very fluid. And Mars is anything but fluid. And so we are having this inner conflict because the impulse, like I mentioned, the impulse, the desire to take action is so freaking strong, even though we do have this part of us that knows that we're not in a time of action. We're not in a time of exerting ourselves. We're not in a time of aggressing ourselves through the obstacles, the challenges that we've been faced with in order to align us with the pursuit of our happiness, of our desires, of our goals. So again, you can kind of see the conflict here. There's one side of us that just wants to step back and let things flow organically and just, see what happens and rest and stay calm. And Mars is over here saying, screw all that. I need to take action. I need to feel useful. I need to have a purpose. I need to pursue my mission. I'm getting frustrated here. I'm being stalled out. I'm in a very short window. Again, if you downloaded your zodiac forecast, you would know that at the end of this month, Mars will be going into his retrograde, which means that we're not able to actually exert the energy in the outside realm in order to push our goals, to push our growth, to make any kinds of improvements. Our energy is going to be internalized and we're not going to be able to be as productive as we would like. So Mars is already feeling this. Mars is like realizing that he's running out of time here and he wants to try and make up for the time that he knows that he's going to lose while he's retrograde. And again, this is why the full moon in Aries is going to be popping in all the right and wrong ways. And I mean that coming from a state of we are likely going to be dabbling in the shadow elements of this Aries energy before we can turn it into a positive. We're going to sit in the anger before we can use that as motivation and inspiration to move forward. We're going to sit in the frustration, in the doubts, in the insecurities, in the frustration and irritability of not being able to have things move as fast as we would like. And we are going to reach a boiling point. We are going to throw a tantrum. We are going to see those emotions boil over. But what it does, just like lava coming out of a volcano, is it burns through the terrain. And from that burnt terrain is a regeneration, a clean slate of life. And that's exactly what we're about to move into this full moon in Aries. But you best believe that this boxing ring that the moon is entering into with Mars is not a wanted fight. It's not a wanted conflict at all. It's going to feel very uncomfortable, very overwhelming. And again, we have to do our best to not disassociate, to not check out, to not run, to not avoid, to not escape. And instead, we have to really dive into confronting these thoughts, these emotions, these impulses head on, taking control over them and using them as a very, very strong fuel to the inner fire that we need to keep lit, we need to keep sparked until the universe actually gives us the green light go ahead to exert that energy out in the world to make the changes that we've been impulsively desiring to make. And that is not happening anytime soon.